Okay, well, welcome everyone, and a big thanks for tuning in. Before we dive into the content today, just a couple of quick housekeeping bits. You will see a Q&A box lurking in the bottom left of your screen. So if anything sparks a question as we go, pop it in there. I'll be manning the chat during the session, but we've also carved out some time at the end to go through as many as we can. And just so you know, there will be a recording sent out after this session. So after we wrap up, we'll get those out to you. A bit of a run sheet for today. We're going to chat for a bit and then we're going to dive into a demonstration of the software. Today, we're talking about how Procore supports managing quality processes on site, and we're going to give you an introduction to our heavily adopted and relied upon tool called Action Plans. Now, I do think it's important that we set the scene around what qualifies us to speak on this today, aside from obviously working at Procore. My name's Annabelle. I manage a team of construction professionals here at Procore and have been doing so for over 4 years now. And having previously worked as a civil engineer in industry for 10 years myself. And then alongside me today, we have Simon Baker, who we've recently poached from industry. And I'm going to hand over to him to introduce himself and dive into today's session.
Thanks, Annabelle. Yeah, as touched on, I'm a solutions engineer now at Procore. So, in my current role, in my previous role, I was involved as an electrician for over 8 years, and then as a service consultant on tier one and two construction buildings. So, I used Procore throughout my career and definitely saw how the platform can streamline quality performance on site. With construction adapting over time as well, I think we'll start to move away from those manual processes. So to have like a quality driven tool that can be accessed remotely will definitely enhance our construction team's quality expectations. So the goal today is to run through an action plan tool. So the way we kind of do this is executing this in several different ways. It's where the whole project team can set their quality expectations from on site and really help performance not to slip through the cracks. So, whether you're managing project checklists, compliance inspections, or handover procedures, action plans can help let you define clear steps, assign responsibilities, and track completion in real time. Nothing gets missed and quality stays on track. For myself, I've been involved in many data center projects, and for us as consultants, we use action plans to clearly define our scope on site from start to finish. We called this a project checklist, and I'll show you a similar one that I've used on a duplex project as well. So the plan had multiple steps with multiple assignees. This was great for team collaboration, and there was no single point of failure if, say, someone went on leave and a bunch of milestones got missed. For myself on this data center project, I was in charge of design and as-built submission. As all the future steps were dependent on these approvals, they were locked off until I completed my relevant steps. The reminders and notifications allowed me to stay on top of my tasks, and the other team understood where I was at the process and would leave me notes to probably hurry up when I should have.
And Simon, just to interrupt you there, I'm interested, and you might be able to, you might be going to get into this, but did you find in your role at least, did you use it mostly in the web application, or did you use it out in the field on like a tablet or a phone?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say a bit of both. I definitely really like the aspect of being on site and say if someone uploads or something's assigned to you on site, it could be even inspecting a wall. You could actually look at the step and actually look at what the wall was doing as well. So that real-time visibility helped a lot. But also the web application's great that you can do it from the office with not even being on site because some of the project teams might be spread across a couple projects. But during the demo, I'll show you what it kind of looks on both features.
And sort of coming from industry myself, I'm interested. Uh, did it drive down the number of phone calls you received, being able to sort of see where things were up to in the system?
Yeah, for sure, I think as well. And it stops you having to chase people over and over. If they've got their name assigned to something with a due date and they're getting email reminders, there's no reason why they shouldn't do it. So during the demo, I'll kind of show how that can really like enhance accountability with the team. So yeah, they've got really no excuse not to do it anymore.
Nice.
Cool. So before I dive into the product and show you how it works in the system, it's good to point out just a rough workflow of how you can set these action plans up. So The project manager, this is just an example. You can set this up any way you like. Similar to how we used to do it, the project manager would get the template and really set the deadlines of what's important within the action plan. If we're using, say, a project checklist, for example, he defines, okay, these are my key stages. I need these done by these dates. So he's probably pulling those dates from a high level program and putting them into an action plan. This is where a project engineer can come into play. They can coordinate between vendors and subbies, really drive that process once the project manager's got his eyes on other stuff. The site foreman, really useful for using that plan remotely, as we were saying, on the phone to look at the quality. Inspecting, yeah, the step might have been checked off, but did it get actually completed to the expectations of quality that's needed? And then as we go towards monitor daily activities and handover, we can wrap that up on the action plan and use it as a bit of an audit trail. So we'll jump into the product now and we can kind of see how this looks in the system. So today I'm going to run through this action plan I've created here. So it's just a project checklist, and similar to the experience I had, I've just used steps that you'd probably see at a usual duplex project, but it works for anything. It could work if you're an electrical subby, you could set it out from in-grounds to screwing on the last PowerPoint of the day. So you can set this up to however you like. It's extremely flexible. So the one I've got on the screen here has high-level steps for milestone dates with specific links to submittals, drawings, observations, and inspections. So this is also commonly used. I've seen it in the industry work for like DA approvals, ITPs, safety checklists, or even like specific quality checks like external cladding. Sharing my screen, you can see some of the stages that have been created within this plan as I roll it up. For me, for this duplex project, I've done the base stage, the framing and roofing stage, the install stage, defecting stage, fit out stage, finishes, and handover. These can be customized to whatever you like, but I think for this duplex project, that's the best way I can set them out. So all the assigned dates can be found in other programs, but with this format, we can pull those key milestone dates to be reminded through this system. Being conscious of your time today, I'll just focus on 3 quality benefits which I think action plans can deliver on construction projects. The first one being collaboration and accountability. To enhance and drive quality on any project, it requires team collaboration and accountability for quality tasks and performance. Creating action plans within the system gives you ability to create line by line project checklists with several assignees or collaborators, internal being a foreman or external being a sparky. Looking at these steps on the screen, we can see, say 1.1 site acquisition, we have the title, we have the status, and then we have the acceptance criteria. So this is what's really needed to complete this step. As you can see here, we ensure that the correspondence with the client has been closed. And what Procore does, it has a direct link to that correspondence, which is here for no site access and also site access. We also have the due date, which is this driving milestone date factor. The assignee, who in the team has the authority to sign it off to push it to the next step. In this case, it's myself. And then records. Being a site acquisition, we're just starting on the project. We need the SWIMS form and the induction forms to be completed before starting on site.
Yeah, I think Simon, for me, having, run ITPs, or action plans out on site, it was always paper-based and it was always sort of owned by the site engineer or a graduate engineer. And that was never shared broadly. You would just turn up on the day with your piece of paper and request that somebody sign off on something. Or, maybe 12 hours prior or 24 hours, whatever it said in the contract, you'd write to the client to say, I've got a hold point or a witness point. But I think it's a really good point to, sort of dial in that collaboration piece because you're taking everyone then on the journey of what's happening on site, as opposed to just always being on the back foot of that organization to get those sort of quality items, in this instance, signed away.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also gives people like the opportunity on site to foresee what's coming up, right? Like as an apprentice, I always got told like to become a tradesman, you need to be 10 steps ahead and see what's coming up on site. So stuff like this, it's even for the laborers, even for the apprentices, the people who are like even the journeymen, like it's going to be great for them to start to get a bit of an aspect of how that construction site comes together. So yeah, that collaboration aspect is super important. So still working through this first stage here, we'll jump down to 1.6 now. So I'm still at the beginning of my project checklist, and what I've done is I've created a hold point at step 1.6. So as I scroll down the rest of the list, you can see everything's locked off. So what it's doing here is it's driving into that accountability part. So myself being the assignee on this step, it's saying that until I've completed my building surveyor sign off, the rest of the checklist can't be completed. So this is where we've got a lot of collaborators as well, and I've got Annabelle on the next step here, who's going to be really getting up me saying, "Hey, I need to start getting going on my concrete slab. Can you please get this signed off?" So all it takes is I come and click in. Once the works have been completed, I sign them off, and you'll see the rest of the plans start to open up.
It's
Cool.
actually really interesting that you show that because I mean, I worked on a nuclear power site and obviously, they have very, very strict controls, but they didn't have that, actual blocker. You
Hmm.
knew it was a blocker, but we had an instance where we had a hold point verbaled or, verbally signed off, and then we poured a concrete slab. So it's pretty in line with what you're showing here today. And then
Yeah.
we had to, jackhammer up that concrete slab because the timestamp on the sign off and then on the delivery dockets was in the wrong order. So it's really great that there's a functionality in there that would have probably stopped us from, losing that much money on site.
Yeah, it's a good point. And look, it's great because you can visually see it when you're going in the plan itself. But what it also does as well, is not the only place you're going to be notified. So if I click into this tab here, you can see this is like an email screenshot of what a notification looks like. So it's pretty obvious what needs to be done. There's a missing step, or I've been assigned something, and then we've got the hyperlink there, take action in Procore. So it's going to take you straight through. So there's not just one aspect or touch point that we're going to be getting reminded from. So I think that's really important because people have a lot of shit going on site. So yeah, there's definitely a couple different ways we can access it. Okay, let's move into our second benefit now, which is improved company quality standards. Action plans give a company the chance to raise standards on quality on site. The tool itself has links to photos, inspections, observations, so there's multiple points of reference with how we can verify a step if it's not only been completed, but completed to the desired standard. So moving down now, as we're already talking about concrete, let's look at step 1.7, concrete slab. Annabelle and another contractor are the assignees for this step, and the action planner has requested them to one, complete an inspection called concrete pre-pour, two, get an observation out of this inspection, which either could be a positive, a negative, a failed item, whatever. We want some sort of record or note taking from this inspection. And then lastly, a photo reference. So now, these requests are all great, driving high quality standards. The team on site isn't going to be in front of their computer all day. So, this might have to be done remotely. And touching back to your point earlier, Annabelle, about that remote functionality, we'll now dive into the iPad for an example.
And while you're diving into the iPad, Simon, I think it's worth just commenting on the repeatability there, of those action plans. Again, I remember, because I'm from the civil space, so a lot of FIFO, a lot of drive in, drive out. Uh, so a lot of server based. I remember going to new jobs and not having to have like taken that data with me. And now I'm sitting on a site having to build out another action plan or ITP around formwork, and reinforcement and concrete pouring and things. And I'd have to sort of write to someone that was still on my previous job and say, hey, could you send me over that ITP that I built out there? You're getting around that in Procore by building it, say, at the company level, and then it becomes repeatable. You can collaborate it on it, as you say, and sort of improve that process as you go on different projects.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That template process makes it super helpful if you've got a job coming up that's similar to the one you've done previously. It's a copy and paste kind of thing, which is really, really helpful. So now we're over on my iPad. Just to give you a bit of what it looks like on the iPad, you can see here all the steps. We've got the status there. Clicking into it, it'll give us a very similar view with the information, the attachments, and the like. So back to this concrete slab example, we have a few requirements here attached in the references. So firstly, the first requirement was a concrete pre-pour inspection. So this is a linked inspection that I have to complete this step. So as Annabelle was the assignee here, I'm going through, if I'm Annabelle, opening this linked inspection, looking at the general information, we can set the inspection date to align with the action plan date, scrolling down and starting to complete this tick and flick inspection. So these inspections, you probably ask, what's the difference between an action plan? They're really specific to that item. So a concrete slab as a checkpoint on an action plan, that's great, but it might require further detail than that. We really need to understand, say, like the step 3.1, has the reinforcing steel been sampled or approved? So we can come through, click yes, and go through all the relevant steps until something either fails or we pass it. So going back now, if there is a failed item, we would have to raise an observation. Raising an observation can look like this. We'll create a new one live right now on the project. We can say it might be something to do with a deficiency. I can come in and say concrete crack, attach a relevant photo for that concrete crack. Assignee, we were saying Annabelle. For this instance, we'll just put Brick Tamlin as his brick and block work, put the distribution, the relevant spec, trade, location, priority, hazard, contributing condition. So what it's doing here is it's prompting you for what to put in this observation. You're not going to have to think of something on the spot and give some massive description. Procore will give you the prompts to do it for you. So now we've created an inspection, we've created an observation. The last requirement on this step in the action plan was to produce a photo. As I'm not standing in front of a concrete slab at the moment, I've already put one in there, but it looks a little something like that. So once this step is being completed by Annabelle, myself, Simon, as the project manager, can come back and go, all right, that does look good and it's up to standard, and we can keep moving with our action plan. So that's what it looks a bit like on the iPad functionality. It's a completely remote device where you can do it standing in front of the concrete slab. You don't have to be in the office for it. We'll now switch back to the computer to go through the last quality benefit.
Yeah, and I think that sort of mobile and offline functionality would have really served me certainly in industry when you head to site, you get all the way to site and you realize that you've left your ITP or your drawings printed out and on your desk back at the site shed. So just being able to pull it up on the phone, drawings, as you've said, take a photo, whack it straight in. Yeah, it would have been great value add.
Yeah, yeah, super helpful. The last quality benefit is achieving milestones and creating lessons learned. So this is a bit of a hybrid, but I always think they're really two really important things when we're talking about action plans on site. So action plans is a step-by-step process, as you can see in this checklist here. And it helps you systematically work through the project. As simple as that sounds, missing milestone dates can be easily done with 12-page granular construction programs. Unfortunately, these programs, whilst efficient in some ways, aren't very collaborative. So the whole team can't really jump on their computer or mobile and have a quick snapshot of how the project is traveling. This is where action plans can come in. So tying back into collaboration now, the team is having constant access to milestone dates, which reduces the likelihood of works being rushed on site and a slippage of program dates, resulting in someone rushing to finish something like a concrete slab pour and mucking something up. So it's easier to view the timeline in a simple format to ensure that we have a proper quality finish. Okay. Now, lastly, I think in the construction industry, lessons learned aren't used enough by companies to try avoid the same mistakes happening over and over. This action plans template here has the ability to add notes, as you can see here, and photos to reference future projects. So what I'm talking about here is you could talk in the notes why the step may be overdue, why that observation was raised or failed, why an inspection was failed. We can use all these links and devices to tie back in for future projects and come back to this plan and say, all right, on this duplex project, we failed the step for the concrete slab. Why was that? So starting to drive off those lessons learned to drive quality assurance systems in the future. So this can not only assist on current projects, it can also assist on our future projects as well. So that's where we'll wrap up on action plans. We'll open back up for questions now.